Now, since the announcement of New South Wales government to bring Australians back without doing any quarantine, we are getting updates regarding the border opening by different states and territories. And there is a possible travel bubble that might even start within the next week or so. So in this video, we are going to give you all the latest updates regarding international education in Australia. So without further wasting time, let's go straight to the news. The first news is regarding border opening announcement by different states and territories. Now, as we know that from 1st of November, New South Wales is opening its border without needing to do quarantine at all. Obviously, there are conditions that you need to meet, which is that you must have a negative PCR test before taking your flight and after arrival in New South Wales, and you must be fully vaccinated with a TGA approved vaccine. And at the moment it is for Australian citizens and residents only. And similar announcement has been made by different states and territories regarding when they are going to reopen their borders. So first one is Victoria. That will also be opening up its borders to both domestic and international travelers without needing to do quarantine from November 1 as well. And we got an update from Tasmanian government as well that they will be reopening their borders for international and domestic travelers fully vaccinated from 15th of December. And Queensland will be opening its borders around 17th. And we haven't got any updates from South Australian, Northern Territory or Western Australian government yet. But they're more likely to be opening their borders as well around Christmas time or early next year. Now when we're talking about international travelers, we are talking about Australian citizens and permanent visa holders, at least for now. And as we know, at the moment, if you are a temporary visa holder, you need an exemption to enter into Australia. So for international students, what's the plan? Prime Minister Scott Morrison mentioned that international students could be coming back to Australia from late November or from early December onwards, especially in New South Wales. Now obviously the government wants to see how the things goes first of all with returning Australians from different countries. Obviously there are around 45,000 Australians who are still stranded overseas, and government wants to bring them home as quickly as possible. But at the same time, they also want to see some sort of returning of international students and some other skilled migrant visa holders as well. So there is a possibility that while the Australian government is bringing Australians back home, some student visa holders could also be able to come back to Australia before the end of the year. Now obviously we have discussed about it in our previous videos as well, where there are some plans that are approved already by the federal government to bring back international students. And as mentioned earlier, there is a travel bubble plan that is probably going to start within next week or so between Australia and Singapore, which will mean that not only Australian citizens who will be able to come directly from Singapore, but Singapore temporary visa holders like student visa holders and business travelers will be able to come to Australia without needing to do any quarantine. Obviously they will need to meet the conditions of being fully vaccinated, and they'll need to have a negative test. And that will be a good kickoff to bring students and other temporary visa holders back again in Australia. Although the Singapore tourists might have to wait a bit longer. But this travel bubble could start within a week or so. So again, a very positive news on that upfront. Now as per the tourism minister, Australia would ideally be opening up to most of the countries around the world before Christmas, so that more tourists can come back to Australia before the end of the year. And if that's a possibility, of course, we would love to see our students returning back before Christmas as well. And that will be such a great news for many students who are stuck overseas. And as per the estimations, around 145,000 students are waiting to return back to Australia at the moment. And also the announcement of all these different travel destinations from Australia by Qantas has been a great positive news for the week. One of the route that they are going to start is from Sydney to Delhi, that is starting nearly after a decade. And that will be starting on 6th of December onwards as well. So international travelers now can fly directly from India to Australia with an Australian airline carrier. Now on to the next news. Australian Capital Territory announced the return of international students. So Chief Minister Andrew Barr released his media statement in which he mentioned that international students will be returning to ACT from next year onwards. So for the academic year 2022, international students will be able to return back to ACT. Obviously, these returning international students must be fully vaccinated, and obviously they will need to meet the testing requirements set out by the Commonwealth government. But the good news is they don't need to do any quarantine as long as they're fully vaccinated and they meet the other testing requirements. Although we don't have any information as yet on what are the numbers we are looking at and which countries these students will be returning from. And we do hope that most of the students who are stuck overseas could return back to ACD from next year onwards. And the last update is regarding the vaccination rates in Australia. So the vaccination rates in Australia are smashing records. More than 86% population has already been vaccinated with the first dose, and more than 72% population has been vaccinated with the double dose of COVID-19 vaccines. And that is such a great rate considering we had such a struggle at the beginning of this rollout of the vaccination. But government has managed to catch up on the vaccination quite quickly, and that is certainly helping to open up our borders, whether it's domestically or internationally as well. And these vaccination rates has been the key measure in Australia's national plan to reopen. Now obviously we do make weekly videos on all the news updates, but if you want to get instant notification on any news updates, we suggest you to follow us on Instagram, where we do keep you updated as soon as we have major news updates. And also make sure to subscribe to the newsletter if you want to get the whole month's news in one newsletter. And if you're an international student who's planning to study soon in Australia, we got plenty of resources on our website as well. All the links that we have used to research this video will be in the description as well. And if you don't mind sharing it with your friends, we'll really appreciate that as well. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.